Are mobile games real games?
Do you guys not have phones? Yeah.
Comic book mobile games are releasing at a rate that drastically outpaces their console counterparts. They're cheaper to make, they make more money, and there are more and more of them released every year. So what does that mean for comic games on console? We've already seen trends from mobile games trickling their way into games like Avengers and Injustice 2. Stuff like loot boxes, pay-to-win mechanics, $20 skins, and keep in mind that Injustice 2 is over half a decade old now. It seems like all that stuff is just this new dystopian normal. So does that mean that the mobile game experience is replacing the console game experience? What about the addictive nature of mobile games? I wonder if that plays a factor into it. Or is it all just about monetization? From toy lines to movie costumes to the plots of comic book event series, their impact might be just a little bit more significant than you'd ever imagine. Honestly, I was surprised at just how many of these things there are. But for the sake of brevity, I decided to focus on just 3. Marvel Strike Force, Contest of Champions, and Future Fight. Or Future Force, or Future Foundation. Future fuck something or another.
Oh my god, we're at Fast Freddy's Fort Hove something or other.
But to start things off, we gotta go back to the beginning and talk about Avengers Alliance. First released in 2012, Avengers Alliance was a pretty basic Facebook game. It was just these 2D character art sprites that hardly moved, and then sometimes the trailers had voice acting. But fans of the game were hooked, so the game even got a sequel. And years after the game was taken offline, there are still fan projects that are dedicated to recreating it. If Facebook's Farmville and Mafia Wars are what inspired stuff like Clash of Clans, then think of Avengers Alliance as the Farmville Mafia Wars to the newer Marvel mobile games. It was one of the first Marvel games out there to feature an in-game currency that you could buy with real money, as well as multiple skins and outfits per character. Features that would become a staple of modern Marvel mobile games. In fact, it was in Avengers Alliance that Isotope 8 first appeared. ISO 8 is an in-game currency, an item, or a plot device for pretty much every Marvel mobile game. It's basically the only thing that kind of ties them all and links them all together. It can make your character more powerful, it can summon heroes from an alternate universe. It's a MacGuffin that can do pretty much anything. The only thing it can't do is be transferred from one game to another. The funny thing is, all these different Marvel mobile games are all kind of different takes or spins on the same ideas, systems, and stories. The only real difference is how you collect the MacGuffin currency. In one game you do it through fighting game mechanics, and the other game you do it through turn-based RPG mechanics. But they're all basically the same game, and that's what drives me so crazy about all this. So instead of talking about every single Marvel game in order, now that I gave you the overview of what they're all about, I decided to focus on just 3. And first up, we're going to talk about Contest of Champions. Did I say Contest of Champions? Because I meant Marvel Strike Force. Not like it really matters. Like I said, these are all basically the same fucking game anyway. So it takes about 10 minutes to get through the tutorial, which is mostly explaining how the different currency methods and crafting breakdowns work. I guess that's what it's about, because I'm not gonna lie, it's too many words and I didn't really pay attention or read it all, to be honest. And I don't really think most people do when they get into these games either, and I kind of think that's the point. So the premise of the game is that Ultimus, who's a villain that I've never even fucking heard of, is capturing heroes from all across the multiverse, and he's trapping them all in Pokeballs. And you've gotta catch them all. Gotta catch them all. Ah, fucking Marvel Avengers, fuck! It will take us months to get the heroes out of these orbs. Never mind the poorly translated English, I'm more frustrated by the fact that they're setting up the player for the expectation that it's going to take them months to get the character that they want. But I gotta give it to the game. I do like the music and sound effects, but I also like that kind of ASMR tingle that I get when I hear a casino slot machine too, so... The way the bullets just bounce off the shield agent's head like a sock'em bopper looks so ridiculous. I gotta admit, I do really like Deadpool's costume here. Some of the costume designs in these games really aren't that bad. Like in terms of modeling and art design and character design, a lot of these designs are pretty solid. It wasn't until about an hour in that the game got really lazy with me. I was sent on a mission to fight 3 of the exact same Iron Mans. Is it Iron Mans or Iron Men? Anyway, after I beat that fight, I went on to the next fight where I fought a pack of Rocket Raccoons. But even though there's all these different skins and costumes for Rocket and Iron Man, I was stuck fighting against 3 multiversal evil Rocket Raccoons who all had the exact same character design, costume, skin, whatever the fuck you want to call it. So I got a little bit bored and I tried the autoplay on 3x speed mode, and man, I have just never felt lazier playing a video game before. When I emulate a game like Pokemon Emerald, sometimes I'll increase the run speed to make the battles faster. Some people disable the animations in RPGs for similar reasons. And you could argue that doing this is similar to that, but like, I just felt dirty letting the game decide my moves for me. and then watching my phone win the matches for me. That was the moment that I decided, no, mobile games are not real games. The only incentive I had to keep playing was the potential to unlock new characters, which I'm gonna admit, I felt a little bit compelled to do that after a bit. But then it got worse. Black Widow told me I could just pay to beat and skip missions, that I wouldn't even have to play them or push autoplay. That's inspiring. And like, maybe I get how this would be fun for a kid who's stuck on the bus on the way home from school, but as a grown-ass adult, playing a game like this just isn't how I want to spend my time. I can kind of see it for the time waster it is. Not to mention the fact that the kids that play these games like this might not have access to consoles or computers, so maybe this is the only Marvel game they get. And if this is the only Marvel game that poor kids get, then like, that kind of fucking sucks. So if you're stuck playing these games because they're the only games you can play, like, I'm sorry I'm shitting on them, it's not on you. You deserve better. That's what I'm trying to say, is you deserve better. Maybe you can emulate the Spider-Man game on PS1. I don't know. If you do that, it's pretty much free, so maybe that's a good alternative. I don't know what the kids are into anymore, goddamn. So I gotta ask, is it that I'm getting old, or does this stuff just really suck that much? I'm asking that question to Gen Z specifically. Y'all were the ones that really grew up with these kinds of games. I was never really playing them, so I don't have much experience with them. But I am a little bit worried that Gen Z might not understand my millennial accent. Computer, can you do me a favor and translate everything I just said into Gen Z?
Don't text Skibidi Toilet at 3 a.m. 24-hour challenge. Not clickbait, Roblox free Robux. Not a scam. Working 2023.
So anyway, I did the most rational thing I could, and I closed the game, uninstalled the app, and moved on to the next game in the video. And then I started collecting characters there instead. Do I have a problem?
You were correct. It's fact. A similar story happened to a young man in the Pacific Northwest about 20 years ago.
So instead of being an RPG type thing, this one's more akin to your traditional fighting game, albeit a fighting game with some training wheels, like playing Street Fighter bowling with the bumpers on. The plot is, once again, that superheroes from across the multiverse are trapped in crystals. Gotta catch 'em all. Shut up! One of my first impressions about the game is that the writing is shockingly bad. And why is that speech bubble above Spider-Man's head? It's really not just the writing either. It's like the graphic design user interface element of it. The first time I loaded up the game, I picked Scarlet Witch as my second hero. But the second time I loaded up the game, it gave me Wolverine. I don't want to play as Wolverine. He smells funny, and Wanda smells like flowers. Also, I kept getting this glitch where every time I tried to heal a character, it completely froze the game. Love that for me. The tutorial isn't quite as long as Strike Force, thankfully, but it's still more than long enough, and it's frustrating in the same way that all these mobile games tutorial modes are frustrating. Only about 10% of these tutorials is actually teaching you how to play the game. Instead, the other 90% of the time is spent explaining the daily reward system, the leveling system, the microtransaction systems. There's just too many systems.
Information overload, man. As a society, we're drowning in a quagmire of vid clips, email, and sound bites. We can't absorb it all.
And the reason they focus on that so hard, the whole daily reward, hey, if you come in 7 days in a row, you'll get a free hero this week. The reason they focus on that so hard is if their daily active player count goes up, they can get more ad revenue. And that's just one of the many shitty, manipulative, predatory marketing practices that are used in these mobile games. One of my favorite YouTubers, NerdCity, made a video about Jake Paul and his manipulative marketing practices towards kids.
The issue of advertising to children has been a battleground for parents and lawmakers and corporate interests since long before the television was invented. There's a huge history there. The reason for all the concern about it from parents, as well as the desire to do it from marketers, is the same. It's unclear to a child that advertising is intended to make you buy something. Younger viewers are unlikely to understand the difference between advertising and entertainment, and fantasy and reality. Children under the age of 8 are mentally incapable of viewing and interpreting advertisements with a critical eye. Children are more trusting than adults and more likely to do what they're told. And that's exactly why broadcasters and marketers want to advertise to children. It's big business.
When I see how they work unlocking characters into the narrative, and then I consider the fact that the point of view character is Spider-Man, a character that's literally designed for younger kids to see themselves in, and as an adult, I can see it, and I can kind of see through it, but It's not designed to manipulate me, it's designed to manipulate children. And that's what upsets me about this.
Since it's easier to control children than adults, and children wield enormous power over the spending of their parents, advertisements aimed at children deliver a huge bang for their buck. During an era of deregulation that spanned from 83 to 89, the floodgates were opened to children's shows built around toys. Toy sales drove plot lines on Saturday morning TV.
Reading through the story and reading what these characters are actually saying, Spider-Man doesn't read like a comic book character. He doesn't read like Spider-Man. He reads like a salesman that's trying to soft pitch you on why you should keep playing the game and spend more money on it and unlock more heroes.
The CTA dictates that shows may not include commercials for products related to the program or featuring characters from the program.
It's like this uncanny valley effect, and I don't like it. It's a far cry from when I was a kid and comic book games just tried to be straightforward comic book games, instead of trying to shill you on a new microtransaction every few minutes. And when you look through the gym menu and the purchase screen, it becomes increasingly apparent exactly what this game is. It is literally gambling for children. How familiar are you with the slot machine brain hack? Let me explain. When you pull the lever on a slot machine, your brain gets flooded with dopamine, as all the possibilities roll through your mind about what could possibly be on the other side of the box. Is Schrodinger's cat alive or dead? The world may never know! That's the scenario, the danger, the anticipation. This is all a part of the experience of what using a slot machine is like.
The predictability would take out the addictiveness.
That's the same logic behind slot machines. And it's effective. Slot machines make more money in the US than baseball, movies, and theme parks combined. And they become addicting about 3 to 4 times faster than other kinds of gambling.
It just so turns out social media platforms leverage the same neural circuitry as slot machines and drugs to keep us satisfied and coming back for even more.
Go visit Twitter or Facebook. Scroll down a little bit and then scroll back up to the top. And then I want you to do something for me. I want you to pull down that little scroll thing and refresh your feed for posts.
Some apps even replicate the process of pulling a slot machine lever with the pull to refresh feature. That's a conscious design choice. Those apps are usually capable of continuously updating content, but the pull action provides an addicting illusion of control over that process.
Wait a minute. What was that? I pulled it down, it did a ding 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 ding, and then new. Doesn't that mean it's a slot machine? Might not have all the lights and fancy sounds of a slot machine, but it's basically the same thing.
Human eyes are sensitive to warm colors. In eye-tracking tests like this one, they gravitate particularly to bright red. That's why so many apps have redesigned their icons to be brighter, bolder, and warmer over the years. It's also why notification bubbles are red. A little icon like this, or this, doesn't have the same impact on your attention as this.
It's the same experience that floods your brain with dopamine in anticipation of what's inside the mystery box. And like I mentioned earlier, Injustice 2 is over half a decade old now. That hype up, unlocking the crate noise that you get when you hold down the button, it's just like refreshing your Twitter. It's a slot machine. It's a slot machine mechanic that releases dopamine inside of your brain.
Dopamine is a type of neurotransmitter or chemical in the brain. It also plays a major role in how we feel pleasure, helping us to strive, focus, and find things interesting.
A brave Tam takes us to an arcade full of computer games. Adult versions of what our children encounter on their screens and programmed like pokie machines.
It's not designed to help us, it's just designed to keep us hooked.
It's little brain hacks like that, like the slot machine trick. And it's present in these mobile games too, in video games that are designed for and marketed towards children. But what happens after a kid gets hooked?
Monumental meltdowns when the devices are taken away. They're reactions that are in fact symptoms of one of the major medical challenges of our time, being called internet addiction disorder. The bad moods and the tantrums are almost like withdrawal symptoms.
It is. There is something about it that changes their brain.
A child starts throwing a tantrum, or they become even violent because they're feeling this need to be back online.
Is handing devices like smartphones and tablets to young toddlers a path to addiction?
I think it can become potentially quite dangerous. And now the age group has moved from teenagers to now really young toddlers, and saying even at 3 or 4 or 5 years old, I'm not able to control my child.
The problem of kids getting addicted to screens and then having literal withdrawal symptoms is only escalating. But I'm gonna be real with you, that's not exactly a problem that I'm really prepared to address or give advice on. It's just something that I saw when I was researching all of this that really freaked me the fuck out when I thought about it. I highly recommend doing some of your own research into the topic because it's a serious rabbit hole. So with all that being said, let's move on. So I talked about how these games are really good gambling simulators for children, but how does Contest of Champions stack up as a fighting game? Well, not really well, to be honest with you. This game is the definition of a button masher. There were more than a few occasions where I just played the game passively with one hand while I focused on other things. There are only 2 attacks, a dodge move, and a shield move. And honestly, if you really want to get good at the game, there's only one combo you need to know. Heavy attack, 3 light attacks, and then shield. Do that for every single encounter in the game, and you're guaranteed success. I feel like the game goes out of its way to be overly easy, but that also might be because of the audience that the game's targeting. And it's because at its core, the game is designed to keep people playing for as long as possible, as often as possible. So maybe making the game so easy is a way to keep people from getting too frustrated and rage quitting. Kind of like how they might with a real fighting game like Injustice 2 or Marvel vs. Capcom. So you know how I started off talking about Marvel Strike Force, and then I've been talking about Contest of Champions for like way longer than that? Well, that's because Contest of Champions actually got me hooked. And as much as I'm complaining, within an hour of starting the game, I was playing it non-stop, back to back to back, pretty much every free chance I could. And when I got Scarlet Witch again, I was so happy. And that feeling of excitement kind of scared me a little bit. So just to be sure I didn't make any poor decisions, I uninstalled the app and then I froze my bank account. For as much as I didn't understand the appeal of Marvel Strike Force at all, I absolutely understand the appeal of Contest of Champions. It's honestly not a half-bad game, but it feels like a half-baked game, and knowing that it's literally designed to kind of prey on your brain freaks me out more than I care to admit. So if all the Marvel mobile games suck, then what even is there to play on your phone? Well, like I mentioned earlier, you could emulate games like Spider-Man 2000 or Spider-Man 2 pretty easily. But then again, there's also Fortnite. Fortnite on Android is one of the best mobile gaming experiences that I've ever had. It's the exact same experience you'd get on PC or console, but on mobile. It's even optimized in small ways that make the game a lot more playable. There's a wealth of reasons that Fortnite works on mobile, but we're going to save those for another day. I mentioned that you could emulate games like Spider-Man 2000 and Spider-Man 2 on the phone. So if phones can run games like that, then why exactly don't we get real games like that on Android? Well, the answer is that we used to. ISO 8 first appeared in a Facebook game, but its first mobile game appearance was in the Iron Man 2 video game. I want you to watch some of this footage. This looks pretty comparable to an old school PS1 game like Spider-Man 2000, doesn't it? How about the footage on screen from all of these GameLoft licensed comic games? They're all real video games, not microtransaction loot box gambling garbage, but real genuine mobile video games. But there's a reason they don't make games like this on mobile anymore. People just don't buy them, they won't pay for them, even if it's just $2 or $3. No one hypes up phone games as real games. They don't get that same discussion or word of mouth. So outside of niche audiences, the microtransaction model is really the only feasible way for these games to exist at all. But when a game like Contest of Champions ends up making way more revenue than a game like LEGO Marvel 3 or Ultimate Alliance 3, it puts the idea in the publisher's head to try and implement those monetization models into $60 games like Avengers. If you want to hear more about how Avengers narrowly avoided being a loot box hellscape like Injustice 2, then check out my Avengers video here.
Wait. You can't just end the video on a plug. You were supposed to talk about Marvel Future Force, or Future Fight, or Future Foundation. Marvel Future Fuck something or another.
Well, I'll tell you what, Six. Marvel can future fuck this. How's about that? I'll be making another longer video about why comic games have kind of gone down the shitter, but until then, I'd like to thank our lovely supporters on Patreon, and I'd like to thank you for watching the video. So with all that being said, I'm Disturbed, and signing off.